Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm excited to have you. My name is Andrea Norfolk. I am the president of Shoreline Destinations. We are a big travel agency, but before we get into that, I want to introduce Victoria. And thank you, Victoria, for joining us tonight. She is one of our past brides, and I'm really particular when I do these webinars about who I choose to do them with. Because, and it's not a bad thing, not everybody is into really a lot of details and planning. They're sort of like, we're going to a destination wedding. We just want to sort of, we're very low key. Victoria and her now husband, John, were very meticulous in their planning. They had great communication. I always am watching the communication back and forth with couples in the resort. And so I asked Victoria to join us tonight so she could give her perspective from really a bride that has done a wedding at Beaches Turks and Caicos, and a pretty big one at that. So thank you, Victoria. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and she was such a beautiful bride, and I was actually able to, I was in Turks and Caicos during her wedding, so I was actually able to come over for their wedding and spend one day and get to see them get married. And I knew she would look beautiful, but like literally took my breath away. I was in tears. It was amazing. So you can see them right there with the beautiful water in the background. And that's one of the things that makes Turks and Caicos such a beautiful destination. I'm sure, Victoria, you guys had your heart set on Turks and Caicos because you guys had vacationed there before, right?
Yeah, it was actually the first trip we took together was to Turks when we first started dating. So we just absolutely fell in love with everything about it. So it was kind of a no-brainer when we were planning our destination to go back there and bring all of our family and friends.
Yeah, it really is something special, and you know, the water is as pretty as it looks in the pictures, and you can't say that for every spot in the Caribbean, but Turks and Caicos is one, in Grace Bay Beach. It's that white sand, crystal clear water. So it really is a spectacular destination to get married. So I'm going to run through things. Again, my name is Andrea Norfolk. I'm the president of Shoreline Destinations, and we do a little bit of everything. We do lots of destination weddings, but I also do a lot of I call them regular trips, but family trips, honeymoons, Europe, Caribbean, all that good stuff, cruises, Disney. We do a little bit of everything. We have a team of 15 ladies. And so, you know, whether you decide on a destination wedding or you watch this and for whatever reason a destination wedding doesn't work out for you, we're available obviously for your honeymoon. But hopefully, I love doing destination weddings. There's something special about it. And again, you sort of, you know, most couples are planning their wedding for, you know, over a year, and so you get to really work with these couples for a year and build a relationship. So again, it is special to me, and I love to do them. And I have a great team of ladies that help me with all of our destination weddings. So again, Victoria, she's so pretty. She has her bridesmaids there. She got married April 2023. And let me see what she wrote. Let me see, Victoria. The most memorable moment during her ceremony, sang her vows. Yes, overlooking blue and beautiful ocean. It really was. It being on that dock was just something special. I know for me, being a witness and a bystander and watching it all happen, it really was something special. And you brought in live musicians for yours.
We did. Yeah, it was beautiful. So we had a live guitarist and live music during the ceremony. It was way better than I could have imagined. I'm a planner.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to envision what the day will actually turn out to be, but it was really hard to put into words how beautiful and like just how much everything just went over smoothly and so perfectly and beautiful.
Yeah, it really, and you can probably speak to this. It sometimes it's already stressful enough planning a wedding, but then to do it in another country, I know, again, I try to tell brides and couples, a lot of times the planning part of it doesn't begin until much further down the line. So I know a lot of times couples sign up and they're like ready to go. These planners, these resorts, they do this day in and day out. They know what they're doing and they will pull it off and they will make it come together. I've yet to have a bride, no matter what resort, what destination, come back and say, that was disorganized. It wasn't what I expected. They really know how to pull it all together. So yeah, so again, this is a little bit, this is just part of the team. We have to get some new pictures. This is a few years old. So one of these days we will get all together. But again, we like to consider ourselves a boutique travel agency, meaning we're not huge, but we have a great team of ladies and we really serve anybody all around the country. So we're based in Maryland, but you obviously don't have to be from Maryland to work with us. And so with us, I'm just going to run through, and I don't want to take up too much time because I want this to also be about the wedding and the planning side of it and Victoria's experience working with Beaches, Turks and Caicos. But when you do work with us, we don't expect you to know. Now, Victoria knew that they wanted to go to Turks and Caicos. They weren't necessarily dead set on beaches. We sort of talked about that. But you know, my responsibility is to narrow things down for you. So once I get your wish list, we talk about destinations. There's not many places that I haven't been to. So for example, when I was at Turks and Caicos in April, I visited 4 properties while I was there for 3 days. So I'm always moving around, checking out resorts because I want to be able to come back and give you my perspective and my take on it. So you'll get a proposal from me with different properties. What else? Competitive pricing. There's no really, you know, you're not going to have to deal with price matching. Our pricing we're getting directly from the resort. So we always have great group rates. You're not going to have issues with guests finding it lower. You'll always have myself and a team member, one of the ladies on the team, that basically is building reservations day in, day out for your guests. So there's always the 2 of us that you will work with and your guests will. You'll always have access to the 2 of us. And we're really managing everything. We'll create a website for you. Victoria used our website, and most couples end up using the website because we really make it a one-stop shop where it has everything your guests could need to know in regards to the events, how to book their room, and all that good stuff. And then Victoria, you guys did a catamaran. I know that. Mm. And that was a nice treat. So they did, and not every couple does this, but we do have a lot of couples as a thank you for their guests coming to their destination wedding. They'll do a catamaran or some sort of group trip for their guests, and obviously they will cover the cost. And Victoria, you guys had a great time on that.
We did. We did it the day after our wedding, which worked out perfectly. And it was great because we didn't feel like we had to rush through the day to see everyone because we knew we had the next day out on the catamaran with everyone. Yeah. So I loved including that group activity. Yeah. And it was just, I'll just kind of speak to working with you guys really quickly. It was super easy. It was like the smoothest process ever. Like Andrea mentioned, we knew we wanted to go to Turks, but there was a moment that we were like, well, should we explore Mexico or somewhere else in the Caribbean? And so it was really helpful to talk to Andrea and just get her perspective of if we didn't do Turks. And then once we did choose it, she was really helpful in helping us narrow down venues based on like what we were looking for. So that I think that's like a big initial stress with wedding planning is just figuring out the destination and the venue. And Shoreline was it was the smoothest process and just made it like really easy on us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm really particular and picky, and everybody's different with what they want. And I really try to listen to what couples want, but I am very particular. And so sometimes couples will bring a resort to me and I will just say, that's not a resort that I work with. It's not worth, it's just not worth my reputation, and it's not worth wedding guests calling saying they're unhappy, the room's not, you know, up to par, the food's not good. I'm really particular about what I give to couples because, again, I mean, it's your big day, but you're also asking all these people to come and spend this amount of money to come there, and so you want to give them a really, really good experience. So I appreciate that, Victoria. I try hard. And like I said, if it's a resort that someone brings to me that I'm not comfortable with, I will just tell them that's not a resort that I work with. So there's not really much that we can't do to help you. You will, if you decide to do Beaches, Turks and Caicos, the more rooms you have, you will earn what's called bells and whistles. And so Victoria and John had a pretty large group. Beaches, Turks and Caicos, because of the price point, the nightly room rate, tends to scale back the amount of people that come because it is at a higher price point, a higher nightly rate. But because Victoria and John had a pretty solid amount of rooms, they were able to earn some bells and whistles to help cover. Didn't you do you did a beach night, didn't you? The before the wedding?
We did, yeah. So we had a few bells and whistles. We did one of them covered like our happy hour and cocktail reception the night before the wedding. Part of it actually covered some of the costs for the catamaran that we booked after the wedding. And then it covered costs for like other miscellaneous things if we wanted to do like specialty drinks or like certain like themed cocktail bars or things like that. So it was a pretty extensive menu of list of the different things that you could pick and choose from, which was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, you know, when I have couples that come to me and there can be budget constraints, I always have to look at different resorts and where their wedding packages start. And really, Beaches is really, really a good value for what you get. You can, especially when you have a lot of rooms. Again, your guests are paying a higher price point, but I can tell you if they go to Beaches, Turks and Caicos, they're not going to be disappointed. They're just not. So it's a little more money out of pocket for your guests to get there. Beaches, Turks and Caicos in general is just a more expensive Caribbean island, and there's not a lot of all-inclusives there. So again, you're paying. Some of that is just because there's not the volume of hotels, a quantity that you would find, let's say, in Cancun. And most of them are really boutique-y and not going to be all-inclusive. So again, from a wedding package perspective, you get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to beaches. So
and Andrew, one other thing I just remembered too that was really nice that with a certain number of room blocks, you actually get like a room free. So that was really, we got like a credit back for every X number of room blocks we got committed. We would actually get a credit back that we could actually use to pay for other things throughout the wedding or just a credit back to us.
Yeah.
That was a really nice, a nice feature too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's, you know, getting those comps and getting that money back, the value of a room, let's say for 3 nights or 4 nights at Beaches, Turks and Caicos, that's a pretty hefty chunk of change that comes back to the wedding couple in the form of a credit. And normally it comes back at the same time that they're finalizing all their florals or their final details. And so the credit's coming back for the rooms on the credit card right at the time when you're charging your card to finalize some of those details. So it helps offset some of the wedding costs, which is nice. And again, when you work with us, we have something called the vault that is password protected. You'll get access to that. And we have preferred vendors in there. Again, Victoria brought in, she had musicians. She brought in a fantastic photographer. Their pictures are fantastic. So these are things Beaches will always offer. They have their own preferred vendors. So do not be stressed that you have to bring someone in. But you can sort of pick and choose if you want to bring certain vendors in. So we have our own list of preferred vendors, along with some tips and all that good stuff, so that you'll have access to the vault. And we talked about that. Uh-oh, am I going the wrong way here? Okay. No, excuse me. Okay, so why do we love destination weddings? I'm not going to run through all of this, but we've touched on a lot of this. Less planning, yes, in the sense that, again, these resorts have their own vendors. They have everything you could possibly need. So if you're a very low key bride and you're like, I just want this where it's almost handed to me, you're going to get that with these resorts. They have wedding decor, like themes that you can choose from, different colors, gold versus silver, certain chairs. Like they put together the packages so that if you're one of those that don't want to do a lot of planning, you really don't have to. They're going to give you cake options. They're going to give you floral options. You can sort of make what you want of it. Again, some brides are very hands-on and they want to tweak things. You'll get menus. I know, Victoria, you went through all the menus. Like you'll be able to pick and choose what you want for things, but they're sort of given to you and laid out up front. So it is less planning in the sense versus something here in the United States where you really are having to a la carte pull all this stuff together. And then obviously just the destination and being able to be in the destination and celebrate for more than one day. I think it's super fun. I remember looking out on my balcony, I could hear Victoria and John's crew dancing and the music. And I was like looking out of my balcony, like smiling because here it is, getting kind of late at night. And it's like, you don't have to drive home. You don't have to go anywhere. You're in paradise. Like you just go back to your room and then the next day you're hopping on a catamaran. So, it really is something special for your guests as well. And again, the cost, that's a big one. You are not going to get what you can get in another destination. What you would pay here is at least double that. And then Victoria, they just came back from their honeymoon. So they sort of delayed their honeymoon, but they're kind of on a honeymoon. I mean, they're in Turks and Caicos, but then you all just came back recently.
We did. I kind of like doing it that way. So Beaches does have a 3-night minimum. So most of our guests stayed for either 3 nights or 4 nights. Some people actually extended it for 5 or 6 and stayed the entire week. John and I did a full week. So we had a few days to ourselves before the guests got there. And then, so that was really nice. But because we were there for a week and you're in paradise and it was beautiful and so relaxing, we decided to do a delayed honeymoon. So we waited a few months to do our honeymoon, which I loved because it's kind of like the best of both worlds where you get this beautiful, multi-day experience and then you still have something to look forward to a little later.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Okay, so why do we love Turks and Caicos? Well, we've already touched on that, but again, these pictures sort of speak for themselves. The water really is that clear. It's beautiful turquoise water and really, really beautiful white sand beaches. It truly is one of my favorite spots in the Caribbean, especially. I remember the first time I went to Turks and Caicos and I did this excursion out to this island. It's called Iguana Island, or I don't know what the real name is, but we called it Iguana Island. And the catamaran may have gone there, Victoria. And I remember like getting off the catamaran and walking through the water and standing on this island that is not inhabited other than with iguanas and being like, this is something like not everybody gets to experience. And that was when I was really early on in the industry and I just couldn't get over it. So Turks and Caicos is truly a special spot, especially for those that are looking for this kind of really clear water and the white sand beaches. And the other thing I like is it's not overdeveloped. It's developed, but it's not overdeveloped. Again, outside of Beaches, Turks and Caicos, most of the properties are boutique-y, much smaller properties. So this is a shot of part of Beaches. This is going to be the Key West Village, which I love. This was actually an existing property that Beaches bought, but it's integrated really well. This red roof here is the Italian Village. And so it's literally steps from the Italian village. And I consider this the hub of activity. The main pool is here. When I have adults only, and Victoria had a lot of just couples. So even though this is a family friendly, all inclusive, and you guys didn't have that many kids, you had a few, but not that many. And even when I do just regular trips for people, if it's adults only and people come to Turks and Caicos, and a lot of them want an all-inclusive option, and this really is the best option for all-inclusive. I will put the adults here on the Key West side because it's a little quieter. And it looks like Key West. It feels like Key West. So it's really neat how they've integrated this. And down here is the dock, and Victoria and John were down this way where they got married. So you can see long walkable beach. It goes for miles. And here again is another picture. So you have the Key West Village, Italian. That's the hub of activity. Back here is a water park. You have the French Village back here. A lot of times I'll put adults back here as well. It tends to be a bit quieter back here. They have a great pool here. You guys did you do your welcome cocktail up here?
We did. No? We actually ended up doing it on the beach by Key West Beach.
Okay. 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 So you did it over here. And then you got married right around here. It was, I think, on this pier right here.
Yeah.
So then we have the Caribbean Village, and they're actually extending this. So this whole section here is now under construction. They're putting a whole new section in over here. So I'm excited to go back and see that when it's finished.
I will say that it's definitely a big property, but it's very walkable. I was a little nervous when I was first looking at this map.
Yeah.
We had guests that stayed in all 4 villages. So I was like, are we going to be able to see them? And you can walk anywhere in 10 minutes. And we spent the first day just getting lost and exploring. And it is really easy to get around once you just spend an hour and just walk the whole property. It's organized well. It makes sense. And it's really fun to be able to just see the different vibe and go from Key West to Italian to French to Caribbean and vice versa. And that was a fun exercise for our guests to say like, oh, like what kind of vibe are we in the mood for today? Do we want to go to the French Village pool? Do we want to do the water park? Do we want to do like more of a quieter morning in Key West? So it is really a lot of fun. And as big as it is, it's perfect. It's the best of both worlds because it allowed our guests to get lost and just do their own thing if they wanted to, but then also make it easy for us to have certain meeting points and times and places of different types of activities where everyone could come together if they wanted to.
No, you're right. It really is. And for those that did extend, I mean, there's like 21 restaurants and bars here. You literally cannot do it all in 3 nights, but for those that choose to stay longer, it really does exactly what Victoria was saying. You could hang out at the Italian Village pool one day, but then you could go to the French Village and it feels like you're on a new vacation. It's completely different. It's a completely different atmosphere. And that makes it fun. I get bored easily, I guess, because I'm constantly I literally hop around from resort to resort. So for me, I like this. I agree with Victoria. It looks big, but it's really manageable. And sort of after a day, you sort of get your bearings with it all. I don't think we need to go through all of this, but again, restaurants, there's something for everyone here. Did you have a favorite, Victoria?
Yeah, there's a few we liked. We liked the sushi restaurant. We also did hibachi. Actually, on our first night, we made a reservation. It's all inclusive. The hibachi restaurant is the only one that you have to make reservations for. So we made a reservation for our whole party. And so we had sort of our own room doing hibachi, which was really fun. They have really great barbecue and just everything. Like the Italian Village has a lot of Italian food. The French Village has some French restaurants. So there's just endless amounts of options. There was even by the water park, there is lots of people went there for late night pizza, ice cream, and popcorns. They kind of have literally everything.
Yeah, there's something for everyone. Tex-Mex, Indian, I love the sushi restaurant. That's probably my favorite. But yeah, they have a food truck, like a mac and cheese food truck, which is so fun. They make all these like buffalo mac and cheese and cheeseburger mac and cheese. So there really is something for everyone here. And tons of pools. Again, we touched on a lot of this. This is the Italian Village pool. They have a great water park. I mean, it's hard to beat it, honestly. To me, it's, for those that are looking for a water park, it really is very, very well done. They have the surf simulators. This is the Key West pool. So again, you can see it's like, this isn't geared necessarily for kids. It's more of like a lap pool. So that's why I'm saying for adults that want to do this, it's doable, and you might want to come hang out over here. You're not going to find tons of kids here. You're going to find them at the water park or the Italian Village. So great pool options here. And again, we won't run through all of this, but you can see a little bit of everything. I know one of my favorites, and I don't know if they still have it, but it was down by the beach where they're now building a new section, like Jerk Shack.
Jerk Shack, yeah.
Very rustic, and I would get the fish and foil. I mean, it was like to die for. It's like my go-to for lunch, to go get the fish and foil. So I know it was down where they're building the new section. I hope they've relocated that and are going to keep it. So again, something for everyone here. Great atmosphere, indoor, outdoor dining. Tons of bars. You don't have to worry about that. Plenty to drink. So again, something for everyone. Ceremony venue options. There's a lot of great options here. And the layout, again, like Victoria said, it's special to have the different villages. It feels like, you can hang out in one day, go hang out at another day. This was actually one of our weddings. So they had a fire dancer on the beach. It's such a cool picture here. So again, they can do anything you want them to do. They can do it. There's very little that these resorts can't do. Real Yeah.
Before we go into my wedding, I just saw there's a question around, do we recommend that all guests stay in the same village? I can maybe answer from my perspective, but I'd love yours as well, Andrea. I personally don't think it really matters because everything is so walkable and close. One thing that we did though, because we had, family and friends from different parts of our lives, and some were friends with each other. So we were actually able to request, okay, this group of people, can we make sure that they're all connected or their rooms are close by? So we had pockets and family members coordinate to say, which village are you guys going to stay in? And then once they booked in those village with their close friends or family, then we were able to request for the resort to make sure their rooms are close by within those villages. So that was really helpful. Frankly, the prices vary. So Key West is the most expensive. And so each village has their own rates. So that was mostly a deciding factor. So when we worked with Andrea on deciding our room blocks and how many rooms we took cost into consideration and wanted to make sure we had a good amount of rooms that were affordable so that people could come and enjoy themselves. But then we also knew there might be some people that would be okay spending a little bit more, like really prioritize being more in a quiet area like the Key Village. So I don't think it really matters. I really think it depends on your guests and their budget. And most of our guests ended up coordinating with their close family or friends and sort of deciding as like a group which property they wanted to stay in.
Yeah. And I agree. I don't, whether it's here or anywhere else. I mean, we always tell our couples the resort will never guarantee it to us. So we call it a room block, which really is what it is. But some people, I just had a bride the other day. She's like, I know this is a weird question, but does that mean our block of rooms is all right together? And it really is a good question. And the answer is no. The resort is not going to stick you all on the 5th floor down on one end. They will take requests, as Victoria said, and they will do their best to put those guests that want to be near each other. So ultimately, it doesn't matter. And a lot of our couples will create like a WhatsApp group. And so then you like just WhatsApp each other every day. Hey, I'm going to hang out at the French Village pool today. Meet us over there at 12. So again, the prices vary here. So, you know, when we select your rooms, that will be something that we would be talking about is what makes sense for your guests. So here's some of their beautiful pictures, which is so pretty. Again, I love this one. It's so pretty. And this is, yes, this is what I was out on my balcony and could hear the crew dancing and yelling. It was so much fun to be able to watch it. And they did a beautiful setup on the Key West lawn. Such great pictures. And you flew in, so you had your photographer from the United States.
We did. We brought in a photographer from the US. We actually found someone who didn't specialize in destination weddings, which I think is helpful. I have noticed that for when we were doing our research, a lot of photographers that are destination photographers charge a pretty high rate, and it's all inclusive of their travel and the packages. We found someone we really liked and just asked if they would come in, and it ended up being significantly cheaper than a lot of the quote unquote destination wedding photographers that we found. And it was wonderful. It was a husband-wife couple. So we had 2 shooters, and it was a really awesome experience. I was nervous because, you know, they hadn't been to Beaches before and hadn't seen the property, but they were like in awe walking around their property. They're like, it's just so beautiful. There's so many like there was almost too many shots that they wanted to take, because everywhere that we walked when we did the initial tour with them, they were like, oh my gosh, my brain is exploding. There's so many like photogenic, beautiful spots to take photos. So that's why you'll see in ours, we did a ton. Just we walked around the property and did some beach shots and some boardwalk shots and some dock shots and just in the middle of the everything shots. So it was fun.
Oh yeah, such great pictures. And it's a great bit of advice because there's a lot of photographers trying to break into the destination wedding market. So it's really a great tip to sort of look for someone that maybe you love their pictures in the United States, but they haven't done anything internationally, and they'd be willing to come in because again, they want to build their portfolio as well. I think I stumbled right around this point when the guys were getting shots. This is when I was walking across the resort and I could see Victoria and John from a mile away. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my couple. So very exciting. Such fun pictures. I love the PJs. Great pictures. Okay, so we'll touch on the venues. Again, once you sign up for a wedding, then you're going to get all of this information, and it really does depend on, you know, some of these venues are smaller. And again, we do smaller weddings here because again, the nightly room rate sometimes prices some people out. We've done vow renewals here. And so we've done some, I think we actually had one at this gazebo, a vow renewal at this gazebo here. But there's some great options to choose from. Victoria and John did the Schooner's deck here for their ceremony. But again, you have this beautiful beach. So that's something, especially if you're beach people, obviously coming to Turks and Caicos, you're coming for the beach. So that's a great option. There are ballrooms. Obviously, there's always going to be a backup indoor location for you in case it rains in paradise, which sometimes it does. So there will always be an indoor venue that they have to hold for you just in case. The lawn. So yeah, this is where Victoria and John did their reception here. This is actually nice. I like this. I don't remember seeing this. I know we haven't had any couples do this, but if you have a smaller wedding party, that's kind of pretty around the pool there. So this is all something that you'll work with the planner on. I do try to be on the first call. I'm not always available, but I do try to be on there, you know, just to make sure you're getting your questions answered. And then again, this is what I was talking about as far as inspirations. If you're not one of those that wants to gather 400 pictures off of Pinterest or stalk Instagram, you know, and you really want something that's a little more turnkey, they're going to give you options and lay this out so that you can make minor tweaks to it. I don't know if you used any of these, Victoria, or did you just do your own thing?
We did. We did our own thing. So one of the nice things about Beaches is it does come included. Like it kind of looks like this white romance, but it's
Mm-hmm.
basically just a white tablecloth, white chairs. Like it comes basic and it's just neat and clean as is, and that's included. And so when you work with Beaches, a lot of what you're paying for is add-on features, things like that. We wanted to keep it simple. We were, my perspective was like, we're in paradise. Like, look around. That is the decorations. And so we did like bouquets on the tables and flowers and things like that. But we kept ours pretty simple. But it is nice that they do have a menu, and it like makes it just easy for you to like not have to make a ton of decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is beautiful and I agree with you. You're in paradise. You don't need to go crazy with florals or anything else for that matter. Um, so again, it's really put together where you can tweak it. You can take things off. You don't like this color on something, or you don't want, you know, the things on the back of the chairs. You can tweak it, but at least they've put this together for you. So you have options. Okay. Okay, marriage requirements. So we have yet to have a couple that does a civil ceremony, meaning they are legally getting married in destination. Most couples, because again, there's a licensing fee. You usually have to arrive even earlier. Sometimes you have to go down to the general office. So it becomes, and you have to have an officiant on that day. So it's not always the easiest thing. And so most couples do get married ahead of time. You don't necessarily have to tell anyone. You just are going to do your own thing, which I think is kind of neat. You get to have your own personal wedding, but the ceremonies are set up very, very much like you're getting married. No one, unless you told them, no one would have any idea that that's not a legally binding ceremony happening in destination. So this is something that will be asked, and they will want to know whether or not you are going to do a symbolic ceremony, which you have to show that you have indeed been married. They will ask for that documentation. Or if you're going the civil route where you want to get married in destination, which will have additional fees associated with it. So Victoria, I'm going to let you touch on your tips because I think this is important coming from your perspective here.
Yeah, thank you. So these were just reflecting back, wanted to just share some learnings we had with planning a destination wedding in general and specifically at Beaches. Our first is notify guests well in advance and get an early pulse on who is like a definite yes, who are maybes, and who are your definite no's. As we've mentioned, Beaches can be expensive. And so the earlier you can notify your guests, I'd say like at least a year in advance. We did it in under a year. I think we notified them in August and got married in April. But if you can give people a year just to budget and plan, I think that's just really helpful. It was also helpful when we were working with Andrea and the Shoreline team to identify how many rooms we wanted to block. We basically looked at our whole list. So we put together everyone we're inviting, and we started to bucket people into like, okay, here are the people that are definitely coming. Here are maybes, and here are definite no's. And that kind of helped us like weigh our odds to figure out how many rooms we wanted to commit to with the room block. So that was really helpful. And we actually ended up being like very spot on with our projections. Second tip, specifically at Beaches, it is expensive for guests to come on site for a day. So it's really worth it if they're going to come for them to stay on the property. I don't remember the exact day pass amount, but it's something that's like not, it really is very expensive. I think it's because Beaches really wants to encourage people to stay on property. I think there's a ton of benefits of people staying on property. Like, while it is expensive, you're in paradise, it's a vacation for them. No one, like not a single one of my guests regrets it. In fact, everyone's like, when can we go back? Like, we're all planning a reunion trip to figure out when we can go back. And because Beaches has a 3-night minimum, you're likely going to be doing activities and seeing people for multiple events. So if people are staying off property, they're going to pay like a heavy tax to come on property just for the wedding. And then they won't even really get to spend time with you for the other events. So as much as it is a pain, we had to encourage our guests to like stay on property versus getting an Airbnb or staying somewhere else to save money. It really is worth it to stay on property and just fully immerse yourself in the experience. It's like definitely not something you would regret. Using a travel advisor. So we worked with Shoreline. They also, the next bullet point, they created our website, which was really helpful. It was like one less thing for us to have to worry about or think about. And they were just wonderful and throughout the entire process, from our initial consultation to working with Beaches to negotiate the room blocks and the rates and the numbers. So a lot of the upfront, like the heavy lifting pieces upfront, Shoreline like took care of, and it was just like so like such a stress reliever. And then they were there throughout the entire process. After we committed to Beaches, we were assigned a wedding coordinator, and Andrea joined all of our calls and was very involved as well, just to make sure all communication that we had with the property after we committed to working with them went smoothly. Another piece of advice that I love about Beaches, they give you what's, I think it was called a test drive in paradise, which is, I think it's 2 nights at a heavily discounted rate for you to go and visit before the wedding. That was great. We had done it after we committed. So we knew we were going to do our wedding at Beaches. We went down maybe about 4 months before the wedding, I think in December of last year, before our April wedding. And we just explored the property, and we like figured out our vision, and we figured out where we wanted to get married and where we wanted to do dinners. And that's when we had the idea of like the first night, it'd be so fun to do hibachi with everyone and just like high energy. And so the test drive in paradise is great. One of the other things we noticed about Beaches is it is a resort, right? So there's lots of people around. And so when the first day we checked in, I kind of had a little bit of anxiety because it just felt like there's people everywhere in their bathing suits and the pools and on the beach. And it was hard for me to envision like what the wedding would be like, and would there be people jumping in and out of our ceremony and things like that. And so one of the things we were intentional about doing was just kind of seeing where people were and what the vibe of the property was around the time we were going to get married. So we knew we were going to do probably around a 5 p.m. ceremony. And it was really helpful for us to see like that was actually a lull time in the day, because most people have been out in the sun all day. Most people are going back to their rooms around 4, and then they come back out around 7 or 8 for dinner. And so that time period was really quiet, and that made us feel more comfortable knowing the ceremony wouldn't be at a time where it's like in the middle of the day and people are still sort of splashing around at the pools and at the beach.
I love that. I've saved that. When Victoria told me that, I literally was like, that is such a great piece of advice. That, again, that's why we do this. And that's why I like to be so involved, because I always get these little tips from brides. And I just think that's such a great piece of advice, that if you are going to go down there, make sure you're walking around during the time of your ceremony and really get a feel for it. So I love that. So thank you. I don't know how that came up in conversation, but you mentioned it to me and I love it. So thank you.
Yeah. It like made us feel more comfortable with making the decision on where and when we were going to have the ceremony. I also recommend to take really good notes on all conversations you have. At Beaches, you'll get 2 points of contact. You'll have an offsite coordinator who you'll work with throughout the entire process until you get on site for the actual wedding. And then once you arrive on property for the wedding, like that week or the few days before the wedding, you'll be assigned an on-site coordinator. So as soon as you check in ahead of the wedding, You'll get a schedule, an itinerary, you'll meet with the on-site coordinator. And that on-site coordinator will have the notes from your off-site coordinator that you were working with throughout. And it's important to, because it's kind of, they're passing notes over. It was really important for us to make sure we took really good notes to make sure that everything that we shared with the offsite coordinator in the months leading up to the wedding got transitioned and transferred over properly to the on-site coordinator once we got on site for the wedding. And everything ended up working out well, but just highly recommend making sure you're staying organized around what you're committing to, what you're paying for, and how you want it to come to life. We talked a little bit about knowing your perks and comps already. So some of them were around the room block. So if you have X number of people commit to rooms, you'll get a credit back. Some of the other perks come in the form of, I mentioned, we got a discount on the catamaran. We got like a free cocktail hour reception for everyone that we did the day before the wedding. So it's really nice to just know what is included in your contract and the perks that you're getting. I talked about this a bit already, hiring a really great photographer and budgeting for a videographer. Everyone is different. For us, we really wanted to make sure we had the day captured really well so that we could relive it every day and every year as we wanted to. So Beaches is great. They have all of their own vendors there, including a photographer. You can get flowers there. So you can basically anything that you would need for the day. They do have either an in-house team or they have contracted vendors that we worked with. I did look at the work of their photographer and made the decision that that wasn't the style that we were going for. And so we decided to commit to bringing in an outside photographer, and we're really, really, really happy with that decision. So whether you bring in someone else from outside, again, Beaches has their own. I just really recommend, pictures are so important and just so nice to relive it. So really make sure that you choose a photographer that you really like. And then lastly, we did do our videographer through Beaches. This was a piece of advice that a lot of other brides shared with me to like, get a videographer. It's worth it if you can put that into your budget. And I'm so glad we did. We were really happy with the results of the video that the Beaches team put together for us. It was basically about a full hour, and it covered our entire ceremony. It covered all of the speeches at our reception. It covered, they pulled in family and friends to give us best wishes that we didn't know that was happening. So it was a really fun video for us to go back and watch, and we've committed to watching it every year on our anniversary moving forward. So it's definitely going to be, that was a really special piece that I'm happy we budgeted for.
Yeah, I love that. And we don't have that many couples that do a videographer. And I agree with you. I think ultimately it's something for you to come back and look on. So, and photography, like Victoria said, to me that's going to last forever. So make sure that whether it's at Beaches or whichever resort, you are looking at some past work and you're happy with it. There are going to be outside vendor fees. That's with any resort. But if you're bringing them in from the United States, let's say, and they stay within your room block, that outside vendor fee is normally waived. It's either reduced or waived. So I don't think, Victoria, you guys didn't pay an outside vendor fee, right?
I think we did for our photographer because they stayed offsite.
Oh, right. Okay. So, right. If they're staying in the block, if they're staying within the couple's block, then they will normally waive that. But yeah, if you're, whether you're hiring somebody, let's say in Turks and Caicos, obviously they're not going to need to stay in the block, or if they're staying off site, they will charge an outside vendor fee. But again, depending on the pricing, it might work out to be the same or even less. So don't get scared by the outside vendor fee. You have to sort of look at what that vendor is charging plus the vendor fee and make that decision versus whatever the resort is offering. I love all these tips. I think they're great tips. And again, Victoria was very meticulous with note taking and emails and making sure that everything was sort of in writing. And they're great. And the team at Beaches is great. And like Victoria said, and this is with many properties, you normally start with a planner who's not necessarily on site, meaning at the resort in Turks and Caicos. All these resorts these brands are very big. So they have a first planner that you're going to work with. And then, I don't know, usually the transition times within 30 days, right at the 30-day mark. It sometimes can take them a little longer, but right around the 30-day mark is when it goes from that first planner over to the team on property to finalize details. So just having your notes, you're obviously going to get updated invoices from Beaches. I remember, we see those all the time where tweaks are made and an updated invoice is sent. So again, it doesn't have to be a stressful experience. I know it can seem overwhelming when you're first starting out, but we really do try to take it step by step, with first figuring out where you're going to go and then giving you the wedding packages and talking about room rates. We take it step by step so that you're just not overwhelmed. And we get many brides that come to us where they've started their own research and they just are lost because it's overwhelming to figure it out. So that's why we're here. We love what we do. I love what I do. This is where we're pretty active on Instagram, but we will post on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel, Pinterest, we're on there. And so at the bottom, you see our website. We have a consultation link there where you can sign up. I offer 45-minute complimentary consultations. So the first 45 minutes is just talking with me asking a lot of questions so that I can then narrow down what makes sense for you for your wedding. And then we take it from there. We have a $250 planning fee. That is a one-time fee to work with me, to get your proposal, to get your contracts, basically facilitating the contracts, getting that completed, getting your website up and running. But then after that, that is it. And that's really to account for my time up front, because it's a lot. It's a lot in the beginning, a lot of communication with the resorts, but I'm handling all of that. So again, I thank you, Victoria. Thank you for taking the time tonight. Your wedding was beautiful. I'm glad I got to be there. I hope we will keep in touch. And yes, if you decide to do your annual trip, you know where I am. You just reach out to me. But thank you for taking the time. Again, Victoria, we asked her because she just was really, really particular with her planning. And I always look for brides that are really, really involved so that they can do these presentations and talk about their experience. So thank you for being on tonight. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we will, I don't know what the next one will be, but please reach out. Please go to our website. You can sign up for a consultation there or message us through social media and we'll get you signed up for a consultation. And hopefully you'll be having your wedding at beautiful Beaches, Turks and Caicos. So thank you. Thank you again, Victoria. Okay. Good night, everybody.